Hello and welcome to Doubles and Trebles. We have a new world champion in darts, and that man is Michael Smith following a fantastic final at Alexandra Palace on January the 3rd. The stats are there on screen. Me and Pieman are going to go through what it means for darts, where it's won and lost. But I think there is only one place to start, Pieman, and that is with Michael Smith. His third final, his first win. In September this year, Michael Smith lost his 8th TV final. Since then, he's won the Grand Slam and the big one, the World Championship, a fully deserved winner. And it just proves, really, keep climbing until you get to the top of that mountain. There'll be some rocky patches along the way. He has had many, but last night, well deserved. And I think that's the general consensus across darts and the sporting world.
Yeah, I think you're right there. Well done to Michael Smith. Credit to him. Better player on the night, despite going off a 5-2 underdog. Highly unusual for someone to go off that long in the final, with the reputation of Smith. But that was as much testament to what Van Gerwen had shown in the rest of the tournament. Of course, it was a very different story on the night. I thought Michael Smith held himself together really well. He didn't really suffer too many dips. And fortunately, you do need a little bit of luck in the final. Fortunately, when he did dip, Van Gerwen kind of dipped with him. And I thought he held himself together really well, particularly in the last set. I always think with these games, I know we're going to come on to where it's won and lost, but there are key moments, and there was a moment where I kind of thought it was maybe going to slip away from him a little bit, but he held himself together so well, and that is a mark of what we've seen with Michael Smith in the last couple of months, and he's following that Peter Wright, Johnny Clayton trajectory of you get that first win after all the years of trying, and you kick on and follow it up with another win. I know he was a very popular selection in the weeks leading up to the tournament after he won the Grand Slam, backed into kind of single figures in the betting market. It wasn't for me at single figures. I don't like backing someone who's never won it at single figures, but, of course, the logic was there that he may go and win it. He had to ride a couple of punches against Martin Schindler and Stephen Bunting, and he rode a couple of punches last night as well, but he came back swinging, and that's what he's done all tournament, so fair play to him.
Yeah, absolutely. Fair play is the an easy conclusion, really, and the correct one. Plenty to pick out, Pieman. Darts was all over social media last night, and well deserved. Mainly because of the third set and the third leg of that set. We saw, without any question in my mind, the best leg of darts ever. Unbelievable. You don't need me to go through every dart. You know the story. But yeah, after 2 visits to the board each, they were both left with 1-4-4 for Van Gerwen, 1-4-1 for Smith. Van Gerwen goes 1/4 of an inch away of the double 12 after 8 perfect darts, misses the 9. Michael Smith comes to the hockey and takes out the 9. The commentary was perfect from Wayne Mardle, and the crowd went absolutely ballistic. And that clip, or that leg in full, has had 9.5 million views on the PDC Twitter in about 16 hours, Pieman. Fantastic.
Yeah, it's exactly what darts needs. We have this time of the year where everyone sort of picks up a passing interest in darts for a couple of weeks. And, to get that, I think it wasn't just what happened. It was the magnitude of where it's happened. The final, the final where we expect the best 2 players to strut their stuff. But so often it's a game riddled with nerves and patchy play. And they both flew out of the traps, didn't they? And you kind of got that feeling. I mean, I've got to give you a shout here. You were asking me what the price was on a 9 earlier in the day. I think I maybe talked you down from it.
You did a little bit. Yeah.
I think it's ridiculous. I stand by it. I think it's ridiculous that 9 dart legs can be priced into single figures. When we see them, maybe less than 10 times a year on the entire tour. But I was delighted that it happened, obviously. And I do get the logic. 2 great 180 hitters, 2 of the greatest ever 180 hitters, arguably. I think for that to occur, you need a bit of a perfect storm of events. You need both players to just be feeling it. You need the right rhythm to the game, which those 2 obviously, they mirror off each other really nicely, and they were bringing the best out of each other. And I got the feeling something special could happen around set 2. And it was just, and to be honest as well, another thing that will get overlooked, what a pivotal moment in the game it was as well, because it was, Van Gerwen. If Van Gerwen had won that leg, he probably kicks on there, and it seemed to just shell shock him a little bit, as understandably. But yeah, a brilliant moment. I've had people who don't even watch darts messaging me last night and this morning about it and stuff. And that's what the game needs to grow. And I just would point out to any casual viewers that you could watch darts for another 50 years. You probably won't see that again.
Yeah, I mean, Van Gerwen could have taken out that 9-darter himself, and we have seen before 4 maximums it in the same leg. I know Van Gerwen hit a 177, but we have seen before 4 180s it in the same leg too for each player. But yeah, this was just it was just so dramatic. And if Van Gerwen does take that out, it's another 9-darter. But this is just a 9-darter on a completely different level, because Van Gerwen was so close to doing one himself, swiftly followed by Smith completing the task. Amazing, really. And they came out the block pie, man. I was keeping an eye on the 180s for a bet that lost in the end. And the bet was that Michael Smith to score 2 180s in every completed set. Well, 4 sets in, he'd completed that task of getting to the 2 180s mark in that set by the end of the second leg. So I wasn't even made to sweat at all by going into a 4-4 fifth leg. It did lose in the end, but just as a nod really to the amount of 180s hit. And I know that you was keen on Smith to score 180s than Van Gerwen. He did, but Van Gerwen scored 15 180s, which is more than what we would have expected 24 hours ago.
Yeah, I could tell you right now, that was not a coincidence that Michael Van Gerwen did that. I think he's the kind of character that we'll have seen in the build-up that people were saying, well, Michael Smith's going to hit more 180s than him. And he thought, no, he's not. I'm gonna take him on the 180s, because I assure you, having watched Van Gerwen time and time again over the last year, he uses that treble 19 far, far more than he did last night. And I can't even say it was his undoing, because he was brilliant on the 180s. It wasn't like it let him down. But I personally think that was a conscious move from Michael Van Gerwen to stay up there more, to try and hit Smith back with the 180s and kind of, take him on at his own game. I don't think it's what cost him the game. We could come on to that maybe now, but, I was surprised at how much he stayed up there, but I don't think it was to his detriment, and it just made for a fantastic spectacle, didn't it?
Yeah, 46 legs played and 37 180 scored. I mean, you don't need to know much more than that. Just as the game as a whole, Pine Man, over that such a long format or long evening or many sets, both of them to average, basically, let's call it 100 each. It is some going. The checkout percentages of it just genuinely did have everything of a game. And as sometimes in these as they get longer, and particularly a couple of the semi-finals that were one-sided, I end up kind of switching off, not physically changing over the channel, but looking at my phone, not concentrating. I just couldn't take my eyes off it at all last night. I thought it was fantastic. You alluded to it a little bit. Where do you think it started going wrong for Van Gerwen, who was the favourite, who has won it 3 times already? Why didn't he win last night?
I think, retrospectively, you can always sort of pinpoint these games where points where the game has potentially turned. For me, the key moment was set 7. As I say, they both set this fantastic standard for 4 or 5 sets. Something else we can come on to. It was been described as the best game ever. Steady on. We were only 4 sets in at that point. Yeah. But while they struggled to maintain that extremely 110 each average standard, Van Gerwen was showing a little bit of a dip. Set 7, which you can see there, the scoreline was 3-3 at the time, and Smith would go on to win that set 3-1. Was it 3-1 or 3-2?
3-2.
3-2, yeah. So I think Van Gerwen was 2-1 up in the set, and Van Gerwen was struggling a bit for his scoring, which Wayne Mardle pointed out in commentary, and fittingly, as is the way with commentary, Van Gerwen piled in a 180 to leave 78, and Michael Smith was sat on 130, and Smith took the 130 to level it up at 2-2 and would go on to hold and win the set. Massive, massive moment, obviously, in the scoreline. What was more interesting for me is, as was pointed out again by Mardle, Van Gerwen packed his darts away when Smith hit the 130 to make it 2-2 in the set. Van Gerwen packed his darts away and went to walk off stage. And it was only when Kirk Bevins said, 5th leg, Michael Smith to throw first, Van Gerwen kind of looked at him dazed. And yeah, I mean, I can't, the narrative would be to say it threw Van Gerwen off. Van Gerwen went off 140 after he got his darts back out. So it's not so much that it affected him in terms of the quality of his darts, but it just shows you a little bit that his head was a little bit frazzled there. And I think, for someone like Michael Van Gerwen to lose the concept of where he was at in the set shows that he had other things on his mind. He was clearly at that point thinking about his scoring game had gone off, and it had. He dipped about 10 points off on his average over the course of a few legs, and he carried that in when he come back onto the stage. Set 8, set 9 was really below par, and it was ultimately it was a dip of about 15-20 minutes, and it was too much of a mountain to climb. Now, in another world, we'd be talking about a second key moment where Van Gerwen managed to scramble his way into the 10th set to make it 6-4. Smith missing the opportunity to make it 7-3 victory, and Van Gerwen came out after the break in that what was to be the final set, absolutely electric. I think he broke him in 11. And then held. Fair play to Michael Smith. Like the way, as I said earlier, the way he closed this game out was arguably more impressive than his 9 data. Because the game, I felt like the game was very close to getting away from him. To miss them chances at 7-3 for someone that's never won the World Championship, to then go 6-4. Then Van Gerwen comes out and he's hitting 11 darters. And if it goes 6-5, Van Gerwen would have had to throw for 6-6. You don't want to be going down that, do you? Losing 3 sets in a row to MVG. And yeah, I thought it was really, really impressive how he got over the line, especially the last leg where he went off 180, 180 and 109 to leave 32. I mean, if you're going to close out a World Championship, your first World Championship, that's how you do it. Take the stress out of the situation completely. Fair play to him.
Well, after that 10th set by man where it went 6-4, Van Gerwen was a shade of odds on. He was 1.98 on the exchange because I checked. And obviously Michael Smith was a very, very similar price. But yeah, just reflected of the way the price has started. I would say on that 7th set where he put the darts down, that was a set where Van Gerwen was 2-0 up and lost it 3-2. So obviously he'd lost 2 legs in a row, put his darts away, still one more leg to go, and lost that one as well. We mentioned it a bit earlier. Around about the 4th set, after we'd seen the best leg that we've ever seen, there was talk started and continued and proliferated throughout the game about best game ever. Almost every time they went for an ad break, welcome back, we're watching the best game ever, or after the break, best game ever this, best game ever that. Continued for the rest of the match into the post-match. It was a great final, but the best ever, not for me. And it was too early to be talking about it. We can all be clever with hindsight and say, oh, it wasn't the best. But they were saying it after the 4th set. And even at that time, the 4th and 5th set, it was a fantastic game, but a bit early to be talking about best games ever.
I think you're totally right. This is a part of a bigger problem within sport, especially British sport. And I blame the Sky hype machine. That everything that happens needs to be a groundbreaking moment. We can't just appreciate something for the brilliance that it is. The time to talk about best games ever is 100% categorically after a game has finished. You can be watching a game and have that feeling that this is a special game. And it was a special game. Anything that has that moment in the 3rd set and the standards that they set for large periods of the match, it's going to be a special game. But recency bias has got to be one of the worst things knocking around in British sport. And I think as I say, I think it lies with Sky to an extent and the social media generation. There's almost like if it's not groundbreaking, if it's not a new level, it's not worth talking about. And I think darts, maybe has fallen into that bit of needing to grab the headlines with sort of sensationalist stuff. Just let the darts speak for themselves. It was a brilliant game, but I mean, I'm just, and I had a look back on, as I'm sure many people did, you have a look back on prior finals averages, when they're talking about best game ever and stuff, and think, well, was it really? I would say Taylor and Gary Anderson was a better final. I mean, we're talking about finals where, it's finished 7-3. So how do you quantify the greatest final ever? I mean, for me, you want a 7-6. Tense nail biting classic. And I think, when Taylor and Van Barneveld had them, 7-6 ding dongs that are going to the last leg, for me, that is a better game. If we're talking purely statistically, as someone pointed out in our comments section on the final preview, Phil Taylor's actually averaged north of 110 in finals. In that final, Simon Whitlock averaged over 100 and got battered. So, in terms of statistics, it's not the greatest final ever. In terms of drama and going all the way, it's not the greatest final ever. I'm more than happy to say this was an absolutely epic final that I will remember for a long, long time. I will definitely watch back on Darts Gold in future years, and I will, I'll maybe put it in my top 5 finals of my lifetime. But I just want us to put this thing to bed of having to name it the best final ever when the final's not even finished. Just let the darts speak for themselves. John Part said it best. It doesn't matter if it's the best final ever. Just enjoy watching it.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I think that can bring us on. We've got a bit of a negative to say there, and a bit of criticism, but I think there needs to be positivity for the likes of Model splits opinion, and I don't know why, because I just think he's bloody brilliant. He engages and grows
Totally
the
agree.
game on social media. I can't see the criticism for him, but and you had someone else to mention as well, Pyman.
Yeah, well, first on Wayne Mardle, I totally agree with you. Darts don't know how lucky they are to have Wayne Mardle. He was a character when he was playing, and he's very self-deprecating about his playing career. He always says, "I tried to do it and I was rubbish." He wasn't rubbish. Come on, this is a man that used to regularly average over a ton, served it up to Phil Taylor in his pomp. Engage with the crowd, engage with the audiences, made darts, kind of set darts on the path to what it is today with all the bravado and entertainment, you could say. So I admired him greatly as a player. But that transition he's made into broadcasting, for me, it's very similar to what Gary Neville's done with football, where it took him a couple of years to kind of find his feet and find his voice as a broadcaster. But now, he's unparalleled, and everything he says is worth listening to. He offers genuine, really good insight. He coaches players, so he gives you an angle from that perspective, and that's something we don't hear a lot about from anyone else, really. He talks about technique, he talks about game timing, he talks about, and he does it all in a way that is as insightful to me as someone who watches darts all the time as to my missus, who watches darts when she has to. She can understand what he's saying in the same way that I can, but it still adds value for me as the hardcore darts fan compared to your casual darts fan. You're so lucky to have that. So many sports don't have that. And niche sports, you need your key voices and key broadcasters. And I think darts are really, really lucky to have Wayne Mardle as one of their leading voices. I also want to give a shout to John Part, who I think remains an absolute colossus. John is a master of, not over speaking. He adds insight when he's got something insightful to say, and that is that is an art in itself, really, because anyone who's in a commentary box, the inclination is obviously to just talk. Sometimes just silence and
you get it in boxing all the time. You get it in boxing all the time.
Yeah, sometimes I think Barry Davis, one of the great football commentators for my money, said that the thing he has with the new generation of commentators is they try and make it about them. And sometimes if you haven't got anything to add, just let the sport do the talking. John Part does that effortlessly. Him and Wayne Mardle are a beautiful mix in the commentary box. So, I love listening to them too. My final big shout out would be to Emma Patton. It is so nice for darts to have a new face of the sport who, credit to the likes of Laura Woods, that have done it over the years and stuff. But you really feel like when Emma's presenting that she loves the dart as much as all of us. She's like got that giddy excitement that she's presenting it because she loves it so much. She's so knowledgeable. She's a master of getting the insight out of her guests. She asks the right questions, and I was delighted to see her given the semi-finals and the final, because last few years we've seen her booted off at the latter stages, which has been really wrong for my money. So well done, Emma, and here's hoping she'll be the face of darts on Sky for years to come.
Well, the best compliment you can give her is that she's there because she's very, very good at a job and not for any other reason.
Yeah, absolutely spot on.
Right, there's two very quick questions, Pyman, before we go. The final, the championship, the year 2022 as a whole, and 4 days into this year. What does it mean for MVG?
Well, it's an interesting one, isn't it? I mean, for Van Gerwen, he'll be hurting so much, and I would just want to say what a magnanimous loser he is.
Oh, he always has been.
I'm always in awe of how well he speaks when he's clearly devastated. This loss has got to hurt more than most, but he still finds the way to. You could tell he was holding back the tears at times in his interview, but he had the courage to go up there and say how well Michael Smith played, how much he deserved it, and credit to him for that. I won't have Phil Taylor's achievements in the game knocked, but I could certainly question his attitude when he used to lose matches. He wasn't the most gracious of losers, which every good competitor maybe needs to an extent. But MVG is as classy in victory as he is in defeat, so credit to him. Where it leaves him in terms of this year, I don't know. I'm interested to see if there's any hangover, or whether he can just come back to the Masters at the end of the month and carry on with them ton plus averages, because, he's played ever so well in this tournament. The pre-final talk was about him breaking records, how much he was going to win by. Ultimately, when you fast forward 5 years, people will just remember 2023 as Michael Smith's first world title. And, while me and you may recall Van Gerwen's brilliant performances, it's the name on the trophy that counts, and he's still stuck on 3. It's a 4th straight year where he hasn't managed to add to his tally, and it's going to really, really hurt him, and I'm interested to see how he bounces back from that.
He does put a lot of stock into the Worlds, as they all do, but
yeah,
2020 was pretty quiet for him for a number of reasons. We all know what was happening that year. 2021 also was. And he came into 2022 not being the owner of a major tournament, not winning anything on TV for about 18 months, won some Nordic Masters, and it's just rolled from there. He's won the Premier League, the Grand Prix. He was the standout, the match play, sorry. He was the standout best player at the World Match Play. Beating Michael Gerwen Price in the final. He was, to be honest with you, he was a standout player at Ali Pali this year until the final. Smith was good, but Van Gerwen was the standout, averaging 110, 107, this, that, and the other. You called it right when you said that, we'll find out how Van Gerwen is when he's chasing. Now, he wasn't, 2 or 3 sets behind early. It was neck and neck after 4, 5, 6 sets. And Smith closed it out really well, as you said, when Van Gerwen did. But he's got nothing to be. Obviously, he would have preferred to win the final, but he's got nothing to be dejected about. You don't have to wait long in the world of darts for your next opportunity to win. That comes at the end of the month at the Masters, and then the season's rolling from there. I think he's been very, very good in 2022, potentially as good as he's been since the likes of 2017. And I see no reason at all why that form, it's not dominance anymore, but that form won't continue into 2023.
Yeah, totally agree. And I don't know if we've got the world's market to have a look at. We should probably talk about Michael Smith going forward first. But I mean, look, MVG, yeah, as you show there on the screen, he's 3-1 favourite to be world champion next year. He should be. He should be. Yeah, even on his off day where he's lost the narrow final to a red hot Michael Smith, he averaged a ton. So, why would he not be favourite to win it next year? I certainly wouldn't put anyone off a little investment scheme in MVG. It's going to give you a run for your money.
And Michael Smith, it leaves him as world champion and world number 1, 2 titles that he has not held before. The world is his oyster. I think he's just going to carry on. He turns up at nearly all the tournaments. He's obviously got the seeding to back that up. He's got the experience, the winning habit. It's not just the Grand Slam and the Worlds that he's won last year. He won a couple of Masters tournaments. He won the one in America, I think. He won 3 days in a row on the Pro Tour, which takes some doing. He did that last year as well. So I think it'll just be business as usual for Michael Smith, but this time as a world champion.
Yeah, it's got to be. Look, he's in there almost a joint favourite alongside Van Gerwen now, and rightly or wrongly, the first thing I think of that with my betting hat on is wow, Gerwen, Price, Peter Wright all getting pushed out. That interests me because darts works in cycles, and I believe we have sort of 4 or 5 players at the top that can compete with MVG, the leading light. Yes, this is Michael Smith's moment. Yes, he's shown that he can now go on and win any tournament, and I think he's going to be a runner in every major for the next decade, of course, a live runner. But, I think there are other players who've enjoyed similar patches to what Michael Smith just enjoyed. And these tournaments can be, a little bit fickle at times. I mean, we remember that game against Martin Schindler where he was 3-1 down. We remember that game where Stephen Bunting spurned 40-something darts at a double to knock him out. So, Smith would probably be a 9-1 chance for next year's Worlds if he'd gone out in either one of them games. So the market is a little bit sort of reactive to what's happening right now. And, it may well be that me and you are sat here in 11 months' time looking at the market and saying, I can't believe Gerwen Price was 9-1. I can't believe Peter Wright was 12-1. There's a lot of twists and turns ahead in the next 12 months. We've all seen it before, and I can't wait to see what happens. But I think for Michael Smith, yeah, you're right. The world is his oyster. He talks about having 15 or 16 more world championships in him. So he obviously wants to play till he's around 50. No reason he can't do that. And yeah, I'm intrigued to see if he can kick on and keep winning in 2023.
Right, well, I thought it was a fantastic final. I really did. Plenty to talk about, plenty to unpack. We're going to be back to talk about the rest of the 94 runners in the World Championships in another video. We've got Q School to look forward to next week. We've got the Masters at the end of the month. We've got horse content as well to come. So thanks for everybody who tuning in. We've done record numbers here on doubles and trebles. We thoroughly enjoyed it. Pie Man's provided more than a few winners. I've chipped in with some comedy value. Please give us a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll be back very soon on doubles and trebles.
Thank you.